Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, I'm Pip Mckay and welcome to Evolve Now, where we look at the mindset and the emotional intelligence for success and happiness. And today we've got a bit of a racy topic for you. It's the key principles to add intimacy into your relationships. And it's really interesting because in business, often our relationships does actually affect our business success. So it's good if we can really have our relationships supporting us. So what are we going to cover? We're going to look at the key principles to add intimacy into your relationships, as the topic says. We're going to look at masculine and feminine energy. So not just men and women, but masculine and feminine energy. We're going to look at why they are essential to successful relationships, what stops relationships being passionate and what to do about it, and finally, what makes a brilliant relationship, and one more, what are the 3 things women need to want to have sex? So I'm sure that's going to keep your attention right to the very end of this episode. So let's get started. So I want to talk a little bit about hormones and intimacy because a lot of the time, we're looking at different concepts of masculinity and femininity, but there is actually a science behind it, and that science can really help us to deeply understand what's going on for men and women in intimacy and in relationships. So obviously, I'm sure you all know that men have a lot more testosterone than women do inside their body and the production of that. Now, the fact is that women actually have testosterone as well, but it's a lot less. And testosterone does something very interesting in the brain. Testosterone makes you goal-focused. So it makes you want to set a goal and go after a goal. And it also takes away something very interesting. It takes away your ability to see facial expressions and to have intimacy. Wow, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because what it means, if you imagine, say generally in tribal society, men were the hunters, not always, not in all tribes, but generally. So imagine you're going off to hunt. Now you need a lot of testosterone in your body to set a goal as to what your target is going to be, and then to have all the energy to throw the spear or to whatever it is that you're using to kill the animal. And then when you go up to the animal, you have to have no empathy as you cut the animal's throat. I mean, I'm being a bit graphic here, but this is basically what testosterone allows you to do. So we can see how important testosterone is. Now, let's look at estrogen and progesterone. In actual fact, men have a little bit of estrogen as well, and often in our society today, because of all the hormones that are pumped into things like chicken, men are having more and more estrogen in their body than they used to have, and it's actually becoming a little bit of a problem. But if we just look at generalizations, women have a lot more estrogen and then they have progesterone in their body. And estrogen does something really amazing for the brain. What it does is it allows you to be able to see facial expressions at a very accurate level, and it also allows you to have a deep form of empathy. And this is really important because generally, again, generalization here, but in tribal culture and as we've grown up, it is the woman who's looked after the baby. And when the baby has no language, she needs to be able to have strong empathy for the baby so that she can work out what does the baby need when the baby doesn't have any language. So she can very easily read facial expressions and she can have a strong empathy, such a strong empathy that often she can predict the child's behaviour before it even happens. I remember a dear friend of mine, he was one of those men, a real man's man. He had a lot of testosterone and he did weights and he was a security guard. He had a company with security. They did incredible security, in fact, even for Princess Diana when she came here to Australia. It's a very successful company. And his wife, he said, she would wake up and be walking to the baby's room before the baby had even cried. And he was like, wow, that's incredible. But that is estrogen for you. Now, estrogen does something else to the brain as well, which is important, and that is it creates community. So women generally with babies are going to be a lot more vulnerable to outside attack, whether it's from other tribes or whether it's from animals, than men who have got spears and hunting are really going to have. So what they need to do to protect themselves is they need to be able to create community. And this is where the estrogen ability to read facial expressions becomes really important, because women need to be able to create intimate relationships or connection with a lot of other women in order for the survival of themselves and the baby. So that means women are able to look at another woman and see her facial expression. A woman is also much more affected by if she says something that's not very nice and somebody else reacts to that, she is going to be much more affected because she's got a lot more empathy. So that same friend of mine, he used to say to me, because I would say, oh gosh, I don't know whether I offended that person. He'd go, who cares? Don't worry about what people think. But women, particularly women with a lot of estrogen in their body, are much more likely to be concerned about what women and other people think, because it's more important for them to create community, and this used to be part of the survival. And you've also got to remember that in tribal days, if you couldn't feed your baby any longer, you would have to give it to another woman to feed. In fact, there was a concept called milk brothers, and that was brothers. They weren't really blood brothers, but they had actually breastfed from the same person, and that was considered a milk brother, and that was a really important way of bonding the community. And especially if a woman ran out of milk or she got sick or something like that, it meant somebody else would be able to take over the feeding of the baby, and the baby's more likely to survive. So this is all part of what estrogen does as a hormone inside the body, and it really goes a long way to explain some of the differences that there are between men and women. Now, there's something really, really interesting, and I love this. It's so exciting. We now know so much more about hormones. But there's a hormone called oxytocin, and you've probably heard of it. It's called the cuddle hormone. Now, it's not just a cuddle hormone. It is a bonding hormone. And when you do cuddle, you will get oxytocin run through your body. But when you have deep eye contact with someone and you feel understood, you'll also get oxytocin going through the body. Now, I've put it in the middle between the man and the woman because oxytocin is equally available to both men and women. And oxytocin, in some ways, is almost like the community antidote to testosterone. So they've done some studies recently with a tribe in Bolivia. And this tribe lives the way tribes used to live thousands and thousands of years ago. And what they've done is they've measured levels of hormone in the man when he goes hunting. So basically, as he goes out to hunt, his testosterone levels rise. And that allows him to goal set, throw the spear, get a result, and not be very empathetic towards the animal, yeah? So respectful and kill the animal, but not be worried. You know, where me as a woman, I'd just be like, oh no, I couldn't do it because I've got more empathy for the animal than I would for feeding myself. But anyway, so he's got his testosterone, it rises, that allows him to do that. But as he starts to walk home with his kill, with his meat, they watch that he gets a rise of oxytocin coming in his body. And what is he thinking? He's thinking, oh, I've been out hunting and I can't wait to see my wife. I can't wait to see my kids. I can't wait to share. And what that allows to happen is for him to feel like sharing the meat that he has just brought back as a part of the intimacy and his bonding with the community. And lucky he feels that way, because if he still had testosterone running through his body, he would feel competitive. And what he would feel like is, no, that meat's for me. I don't really want to share it. I hunted it. I want it. And we know some people like this. I want to keep it all for myself. I know some people who I've coached, their father was like that. He came home, he'd earned the money, he didn't want to share the money with his family. He didn't want to provide. I know I was working with a client quite recently where her father never provided any money to the family. Her mother had to go out and make money so that the family actually had money for food and everything like that. So that's somebody who's got some weird twist in their brain, and the testosterone is still there as he comes home, and there's not enough oxytocin. But unfortunately, this is starting to happen more and more in families, as the person who's been out working is more and more stressed, and when they come home, they are staying in a stressed place and they are staying with high testosterone. And when that happens, they feel angry at somebody interrupting their time, they don't cuddle their kids, they want to get the kids away from them, and they're not spending time. Whereas what's really important is when you come home, you suddenly look deep inside the eyes of the people you're coming home to, you cuddle them, you greet them, you spend time with them, and that rises your oxytocin level. And this is very, very good for you because testosterone has a big impact on the heart. And that is part of the reason why men often die earlier than women do, because of the testosterone level and the pressure it puts on the heart. But if the person comes home and has that loving relationship, oxytocin floods through the body, stress hormones go down, androgens and stress hormones go down, serotonin, dopamine lifts, and this is very, very good for the entire health of the body and particularly good for the health of the heart. So, really important. Now, women, if they are hugging their babies and doing that with their babies, they will have high oxytocin levels. But if they're going out into the corporate arena and they are needing to compete and they are needing to goal set and get goals, they get a rise of testosterone in their body. But unfortunately, women don't have as much testosterone available to them, and so they will often run out of testosterone, and then what takes over is stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol takes over. So they run out of their testosterone, adrenaline and cortisol takes over, and now they're in a really stressed place, and they can often be burning themselves out if they're in a very competitive environment. So women have to be careful and making sure that when they come home, they do this oxytocin and creating an antidote to the testosterone that's going on. But this is one of the reasons we're seeing more and more women unable to conceive because they're in a very stressful job. And what happens when we're in a very, very stressful job is we have our stress hormones, and they basically steal hormones from our baby-producing hormones. So basically there's a hormone called DHEA, and DHEA creates cortisol and creates our stress hormones. It's much more complicated than this, but basically. And DHEA also converts into progesterone and estrogen. And what happens is when we have a lot of stress hormones as women, what happens is there's a thing called the DHEA steal. So basically, so much DHEA is stolen to produce adrenaline and cortisol that there's not enough left to produce estrogen and progesterone. And what progesterone does is it keeps the baby held in the body. So often if women are very stressed, there's not enough progesterone to hold the baby there, and that can create miscarriages. Now, if the woman continues to be stressed, not only does progesterone go, but later on estrogen goes as well, and then the woman is having trouble getting pregnant. So it's really important that we're able to balance our stress hormones, and one of the best and easiest way to do that is with oxytocin. You simply cannot have adrenaline and cortisol in the body when you've got oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine in the body. They can't exist in the body at the same time. And the easiest way to do that is intimacy. And unfortunately, when women get stressed, this is often the last thing that they want to do, is have intimacy, because they see intimacy as another thing that they have to do to serve other people, rather than seeing that intimacy can be a place where they receive love and attention and look the person in the eye, create oxytocin in their body, dopamine, serotonin, feel love, and you get oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine in the body, and they are incredibly healing for the body. They take inflammation away from the body. They're great for the whole body. So this is the difference. Now, one of the really interesting things that goes on
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.